just to add to that, I think Alex Hormozi puts it the best, where I think it's in one of his books, and he talks about how your level of belief increases at like 3 stages. So it's one is I've seen someone else more successful than me do it, so it's possible. So I get a little bit more belief. Then there's the next one, which is I see someone else that's probably at the same level as me, but they've been able to do it. Then there's the one where it's like, I've done it before, I can do it again. When you don't have any of those examples around you, you don't think anything's possible, because you're like, I've never seen it happen, so it's impossible. So if you're thinking about how do I go and achieve extraordinary things for myself, if you start a business, there are people that will fail within the first year. So if you make it past the first year, you're not average. And if you surround yourself with people who are average, you'll get average results. And it sounds so savage, but how many people have people in their lives, they're like, oh, every time I catch up with them, probably parents, it's probably siblings or your partner. And you're like, every time I catch up with them, it's always negative. You're going to have to cut them. And I know it sounds bad, but if you want that so badly, like that's what you're going to have to do. That's the sacrifice.
G'day everyone. If you've come to YouTube looking for Ravi Sharma, you're in the right place. It just happens to be a guest this time as opposed to running the video. Ravi, I've got to say, mate, I love your work.
Thank you so much, man.
I'm a fan. I love when I see industry peers and colleagues that are kicking some absolute goals. Mate, how old are you?
I'm 33 this year.
This is ridiculous,
32
mate.
at the moment.
But honestly, I look up to what you're doing, both personally and professionally in property. I think you've been so open with your journey. I think that's probably where you get a lot of your success from is I'm one of you. For example, you come down to, I think, a lot of where people are at, meet them at their level. What do you feel has been, and you may be uncomfortable with the word success, for example, but what do you feel has been part of the what resonates with people that are on the journey?
Well, firstly, thanks for having me back. I must have been all right here for you to enjoy, awesome, for me to be back. But yeah, I think it's been interesting. Like if you, and again with the book, when I was writing it as well, it was like, I've got to start at the beginning. And when I start going through that journey, I'm like, these are the questions I get asked at the buyer's agency now. And it's like, okay, so I've sort of lived through this already. And that's why people have sort of, resonated a bit more with my journey going, okay, I'm going through that right now. I might be at phase 2 or part 3 or 6. So I think that's helped. But yeah, I've just enjoyed sort of sharing. But I think the community's definitely changed from when I started to where it is now. There's like a lot more information.
Yeah.
But I think when you go through a period where some people had a lot of success with property, buying at the right time, a lot of people missing out, you've seen this massive divide, not just within property, but like in general, like politics. It's like a game of it's me versus you. And it's never like, hey, collectively, we should be all banding one as one versus I support this people, I support this person, and now you're an enemy to me. I think that's where we've headed over content over the last 5 years, which is scary.
Right, well said, well articulated. If you just jumped in, you're like, hang on, who's this bloke? Ravi Sharma, you run a great buyers agency. Personal investment with Ravi is your YouTube?
Yeah, personal finance with Ravi.
Personal finance, yeah, sorry, mate. And we're going to touch on your book, which I love. I think the title's interesting, and I'll go through my own thoughts and questions around the title. But mate, Search Property Buyers Agency has gone from strength to strength. I know you've gone from strength to strength. I see you with what you've done with your content, with podcasts. Like you've traveled to America, right? Like
yeah, that was wild.
Yeah, I'm going to go there. So we're going to cover off a bit of territory today. One is naturally what is the essence of Ravi's book and how do you actually retire filthy rich through investing in property? If that's not your goal, then I've got to question why you're investing in property. Personally, it sounds a bit crass. I love it. I do a lot of broker coaching, and I say if you aren't making profit in your business, what are you doing? It's not a crass message. It's a genuine message going, we're here to make money, not here for and giggles, right? So I don't think you need to apologize for having that title first and foremost, but I want to go back a second to say, take us through what's been some of the highlights that you've had personally and in your own journey, mate? And we're going to come to the wedding later as well. Or should we start with that?
We'll probably start with that because I think
fat Indian wedding, mate. Tell us more about that.
Anyone that follows me on any platform, they probably would have seen me dance for the first time. I thought this guy was like some nerd behind the desk. Felt really weird to like have. I say weird, but it was also such a warm experience knowing that we had probably about 12 to 15 people from the Search Property team also traveled to Thailand to come to the wedding. So really connected with a lot of people, which was great. And yeah, obviously sharing that with people that have followed the journey, because a lot of people have followed my partner, they followed me, and they're like, oh, cool, we want to see a little bit more. And I thought this would be a great opportunity to show a different side of myself, but also invite people into that world.
Yeah.
I was just very happy that week. I've been happy ever since as well, but just spending so much time with family. I'm someone who, and you'd be the same, is you prioritize work, suddenly your weekends mesh into your weeks, and you don't go to as many family gigs anymore. But when you get to have everyone together for like 3 or 4 days, you wake up with them, you go to sleep with them, you see them at breakfast, you see them at the events in the evening.
But also everyone's out of their territory, so the guards are down. No one's got, you got nowhere to be. We're here in Thailand specifically for this wedding, right?
Correct. Yeah. And that was a big part of like doing it as a destination wedding was our grandparents, they live in Sydney, and they've got, siblings that live in India. And they haven't seen each other for 10 years.
Wow.
And they have no plans to go to India. And the people from India don't have plans to come to Sydney. So we were like, this would be the opportunity for them to, meet. And they're in their 70s and 80s. So you just never know about life. And so seeing those moments, that was like bliss. So very happy that we did it. And happy it's over.
Excellent. Mate, the wedding is one day, my friend. In your case, it might be a couple of days, right? It's what happens after that. And I'm really fortunate that when we even got married, we did a lot of pre-couples pre-wedding counselling. It was laying the foundations going, now you're becoming a unit. What do you actually want in your life together? How do you deal with conflict? What have you seen growing up? What roles do you want to play? And I think that gave us a really strong foundation heading into a marriage, not as opposed to heading into a wedding for one day. I could draw a little bit out of that going, that's almost that goal setting that goes into, but why are you investing in property? It's not about just buy a property. It's about how do you build a portfolio? What do you actually want to achieve and get out of that as well? And I think having a bit of critical thinking that goes into it, we've probably done that in our businesses like you would have. But I think having a level of clarity for what you want in your life together, the wedding is simply one day on the journey, but you could put all your eggs into that one basket and now go, and post-wedding blues is a big thing as well, right? Because you come off such a high. But take me through, obviously you've had the chance to go to the US. Tell us a little bit more about what that involved. And
this is probably a massive shout out to anyone that does content in general, because, you would have felt it at times where you're like, I'm putting out so much effort into this and it's just not clicking. So I launched a podcast last year, and it was more around just founder stories and just connecting with people. It was a very selfish, move to create the podcast.
Which that's how these contents all started. I just want the answers to my questions.
And just connect with some cool people.
Yeah.
And I did that for about a couple of months, and it just wasn't getting any traction. And at that point, I was like, I'm probably going to stop doing the podcast altogether because it takes up way too much time. And then that evening, and it's weird how it works, the universe, and I totally believe in it, but that evening I get an email from the peeps at Spotify, and they said, hey, we want to come into your office and chat about something we're working on. And I said, okay. And they came and they said, well, it's because of this podcast that we, sort of came across your stuff. And, Spotify's launching video and whatnot. And so we want you to be like part of the first cohort of Australian creators to be on there. Incredible. And I was like, okay. So they pretty much had forced me into, I still have to create content on this podcast, which I'm grateful that, that happened. Yeah. But as a result, they got us to fly out to LA, and then we met with some really cool people like Stephen Bartlett, Chris Williamson, Jay Shetty. And when you sort of think about content, you like, because we're in Australia, it's so much smaller than it is overseas.
Totally.
And when you see the stuff that they're doing at the level they're doing it at, I came back and I was just so inspired. So, shout out to Spotify for making that happen. But
100%.
Just being in the right place, right time, and just persevering sometimes pays off.
Mate, don't say right place, right time. That's like people saying, I got lucky in the property market. Hey, mate, you did. The market lifted you up, but you took action. You went and got a loan approved. You went and bought property. You made decisions, contracts signed. There was all that stuff that was below the surface that, yes, nobody saw, and they're seeing above the surface stuff. Same would go for yourself. And this is not me blowing any smoke. This is saying for people, if you have an idea and you're waiting for someone's validation, just show up and do the work. And that's probably the number one thing on my vision board is, even if no one's watching, do the work. If people criticize you, do the work. If people praise you, do the work. Like that doesn't go out of fashion. That doesn't change. You weren't looking for validation. In fact, it almost just comes at a point where it pats on your back going, I think you're doing the right thing. And it just clicks into gear at that point, and you your momentum. Like, how long have you been having YouTube videos for? This has been going for years, right?
Yeah, we just crossed over 5 years for the YouTube
crazy.
channel as well. So it's crazy.
Mate, there was a time when no one was listening. You're talking to yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I remember starting and I had I used to do live Instagram video, and I'd have 2 people, and it was like my best mate and my partner who was in the other room.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is so shit. Like, it was so bad for your confidence. And then I'd put it up onto YouTube, and I remember having like 50 subscribers, like 50 people, that's a lot. And you just got to start somewhere.
You have to start somewhere. This early stages in the journey are going to be tough. I can say, mate, writing a book, I get the labor of love. But I think something you said earlier, which is, but this is like the amount of conversations that have been condensed into this book. These are conversations that have landed with people. Read it, because I'm getting straight to, like, you're almost getting the best of me in a book. And you can't have this many conversations anymore one-on-one, like with your time, right? Yes, you can have digital conversations, but this is a way of having a conversation with someone at their own pace, because they can read it, they can stop, absorb, come back to it as well, right? Whereas you and I probably have like 15-minute calls, and it's like bang, bang, bang on the go, right? So I just want to touch on this and go, right, let's start with the title, Retire Filthy Rich. What inspired the title?
Well, firstly, I got rejected a lot because of the title.
Yeah,
so and you'd be familiar with this, with the publisher game and
Correct.
whatnot. So when we started the writing journey, I was like, okay, I know at some point, and I'm big on visualization and manifestation. So I was like, at some point there will be a book. It'll attract a different audience, and it needs to happen. So what I did was I started writing the book, and obviously because there was no deadline, you sort of do a little bit and then just leave it, as you would know. And then you get to the point, you're like, okay, now I think it's enough for us to now start reaching out to people or publishers. And it was just rejection. And one of the main things was the title. I don't think it's a bit tone deaf. Like, who wants to be filthy rich with real estate when no one can buy property?
We're talking about housing affordability as a crisis in this country.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the reason why I actually stuck with the title was because I made a video like a couple of years ago on the YouTube channel, and it had the same title. And it took off and it did really well. And then I made another video that was sort of the same sort of title. Filthy Rich was my like tag thing at the time, and it just did really well and it hit with the audience.
Awesome.
And when I saw the comments, they actually weren't as negative as I thought they would have been, because filthy rich to me wasn't just make a shitload of money. It was filthy rich for me is, how am I absurdly rich in life? And that could be my relationships with my family and friends. And then I'm content or very satisfied with what I do at work.
Beautiful.
So when you see it at a very surface level, you're like, oh, okay, whatever. You just want to be like stupid rich. But it's like not just money. It's more than that. It's just happiness. And I drew a lot in terms of our conversation last time, because and I mentioned this to you before, is just, I think when people go out on content, it's very much like, hey, look at my car, look at this, look at that. Whereas when we connected for the first time, I was like, oh, you're exactly like what you put out online is exactly what you get in person. And it was very much stay in your own lane and happy days. And I think that's where, I went with the book.
I love it. And I picked up that vein as well, which is, if you're doing it to become filthy money rich, you've missed the point, because it becomes diminishing returns. The first few purchases that you do, you pinch yourself. After a while, it's like, we're just going through the motions. And you almost have to give yourself an uppercut at that point, going, do you know how privileged you are to buy property in this country? And I think for you and I, and this will go for a lot of listeners that come from different backgrounds, when you get to travel to a country and see what third world living is like, and then you come to this country and you complain about the price of real estate, but I'm like, look at the standard of living, man. Like, look at the government stability. Look at the support systems we've got in place. Look at the education. Look at the healthcare. Look at the roads and clean water that comes out of a tap. Why wouldn't you want to take every opportunity this country is giving you, and don't feel guilt? You grab it with both hands, and then you can help more people once you can put the gas mask on yourself and your family. It's like, we are abundant beyond belief as a family. Instead of feeling guilty, we have more resources to then give to others. And I feel like that's a message of like, that's what being rich also in a mindset and a giving and an attitude, that's what it enables you to do, rather than how many more properties can I accumulate and be a greedy landlord. Like, you've missed the point.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I think, money in the right hands can do a lot of good. And I like to think that, money just exposes whatever that truth is. So you could go, I'm a really nice guy. As soon as you get money, you'll realize very quickly if people don't want to talk to you anymore and don't want to be around you, it's probably because you're not really a nice guy. And I think it exposes you on that level, same as like social media and whatnot. So when the money is in the right hands and we can do good with it, then I think that should be promoted. So that's what my philosophy is, at least.
I love it. Let me just go and double down on this. Again, I do research. People that have listened say, look, they can see the research that goes into it. There's the AFR did a research piece. This is going back last year. There are 635,000 rich Australians. So this is what they're deeming as rich. And this is almost established affluent people. $2.5 to $10 million in assets, excluding your family, home, and super. Now, there's income bands. You probably look at the income bands, the top income bands in Australia, see what, 200, 220, 250K above. But when you break that down, we're talking about 635,000 truly rich Australians. That's a very small percentage of a population of what, 25, 26 million people, right? You look at median income. When they say the profile of a rich Australian, and this is the AFR, I'll include the link to this article, over 60 years old, has an SMSF, owns their own business, or is it an executive, has more than two sources of wealth, and the main source of wealth is their salary, investment profits, property investments, business profits, and the last one's inheritance. I think that's really important. When you look at the inheritance being the last one, people kind of waiting for the banker mum and dad to roll over and like, I'll inherit it. If you go and do it yourself, that's generally where you probably get bang for buck as well. And property investment sits well in that echelon of helping people move the dial. But also I think over 60 says there is a long game element to this as well. So take me through some of the research that that's gone into, like when you've condensed your thoughts into a book. What's some of the things? What's some of the numbers, stats, ideas that have surfaced for you?
I think the main one, which I think has been sort of circulated a lot, is just around how many people actually own more than 5 or 6 properties. And when you think about it, I think it's like the number's like 20,000 or whatever. It's like less than 0.01%.
Yeah.
And when you think about that, you almost feel like you need to take stock of the fact that right now you're probably in an echo chamber. So if you're investing and you're investing, say, with a buyer's agency or a mortgage broker that like helps with that sort of stuff, you're like, oh, so, you know, have others done this? And you're like, yeah, this person just bought the 3rd property or the 4th property. And then when you actually step out into the real world, you're like, holy crap, this is actually very rare. And I like to think that sometimes you can draw like inspiration from people that are further ahead. But I think a lot of people sort of compare their day one to someone's day 100, which is negative. But when you take a look the other way, what you're doing if you have one property is freaking phenomenal. And so to think, oh, I've got to get to 6 and that's not good enough, I think you just got to get your head checked and realize where you're at in life because that's freaking amazing. And most of those guys are doing it when they're much older.
Yeah, so you got the means. I love ambition. I think it's a wonderful trait. Ambition will cross over maybe into greed. My mum calls it aversion. So I think it's almost a wrong agenda to do it, to flex or to ego or to boast. So there's a real beauty that happens. And that's why we're creating a community of investors where your success can be championed, your ambitions can be celebrated, and you can be accountable for that. But you're right, mate. It becomes an echo chamber because, you know, we deal with high net worth clients. It can actually make you out of touch. It can genuinely put you out of touch once you start earning a certain income level or you get to a property portfolio level. Do you feel you lack empathy sometimes now? Because, I mean, I read in your book and you've been open with it, so I'll quote you that you've got, 15 plus properties, right? Do you feel you lack empathy or still can you put your feet back in someone's shoes at the start of the journey going, I've been there, man, and all you got to do is just keep putting one foot in front of the other?
Well, I think I'm in a unique situation where, yes, my friends have property. Yes, they're running their own businesses and all that. But I also interact with a lot of people, even at work, that may not have as many properties, or they speak to a lot of people that are just starting that journey. And for me, because I've stayed so like close to, the ground when it comes to, I still read my comments on YouTube, even though some of them shit on me.
The golden rule of socials, you do not read the comments.
Yep. And I think what it's done is it's allowed me to stay true to myself, but also true to what's happening, on the ground floor. So if you think about it, when rates were low, the amount of comments that were coming through that were positive were amazing because people were like, oh, I can buy anything. Now, when you have interest rates go up, it just got negative and negative and negative. And you're like, I've got a lot of empathy for the fact that there's a lot of people, a lot more that are dealing with hard shit than there are those that are winning. So I think over time, my empathy is probably reduced for the fact that, you know, when people complain that it's too hard, because I'm like, it's hard, but it's been harder. Like there's people that couldn't have a side hustle. Now you can. And I know that there's, first thing I ask is when, you know, I've got an acquaintance that I catch up with and they complain about things, it's literally, you can put them on when you say, show me your phone and show me your screen time. Because my screen time, and I'm on socials like for work, I'm at like max 2 to 3 hours. So if they're on for 6 to 7 hours, you're telling me you're spending an extra 4 hours and it's not even your business. So that means you do have time. And that's probably where I have come very clear with how much empathy I have for that. But I'm still very empathetic towards the housing issue that we have. And two, that not everyone's going to have a fair go at this. And that's difficult, but it is what it is.
So just on that point, and again, this is not an ego question, like, are you extraordinary or have you just gone, I'm going to find a way to be resourceful. I'm going to find a way to not take no for an answer. I'm going to push and push and push till I keep getting what I want out of life to become, you know, quote unquote, filthy rich to real estate. Because when you look at amassing a portfolio like what you've done, and you're nowhere near finished, this will now compound and almost rapidly accelerate and take you to another level. It's going, not that you feel guilty for your success, but just going, I can still relate to someone where they are in their journey, but I'm telling you, the other side is so much better when you have more.
Yeah, I think I've given up on the whole convince people. So, you know, whether it's family or friends, if they don't want to be involved, my moral obligation is, guys, this is the resources and this is what you can do. But that's probably the limit I go to. So it's never about, hey, you 100% should do this. And I didn't do that with my mate a few years ago. And he was like, why didn't you push me at that point? Because I wish I got in this earlier. And I was like, I think that speaks to my personality. I'm just not that type of guy. I'm not very salesy. I'm not very good at that. And two, I shouldn't be the one convincing you of something like this. It has the seed of it has to come from you. And if the seed comes from you, I'm helping to nurture and cultivate that. But if it doesn't start from you, I'm not the guy that's going to come out and say, I'm going to drag you out of bed and I'm going to get you there. It doesn't work for me because I'm like, I want to get really ripped and into my fitness. But if that seed doesn't start with me, I'm going to rely on, you know, being accountable to a personal trainer. And yeah, I might get the physique, but internally I'm like, I only got there because of that. But if the core started with me and I can go, okay, I can go 4 times a week. Maybe my workouts aren't optimized, but now I can optimize it, but I'm happy because I started this journey. And I think a lot of people like probably listening are going, well, I've taken the first step, which is I'm spending a Saturday evening listening to these guys. That's the first step. And I think that can cultivate and be nurtured. But I don't believe in the whole, if you're looking completely left, I'm not going to be the one that's going to drag you across that side and convince you that this is a good idea.
It's interesting. Even I get challenged when I'm like having these conversations, right? Because I'll get someone, and it's almost like a red rag to a bull, I feel, when someone says, thanks, Aaron, we're just going to park this for 6 months and we'll come back. And I'm like, no. Guys, tomorrow is when we take action. And I've got to really check myself at that point going, yeah, it's not the energy they need, but I'm trying to be the enabler. I'm trying to like, hey, come on, mate. I do your loan or someone else's loan with someone. I'm going to get paid, and that doesn't faze me. But it's almost like on my watch, no one sits still. And so I find it almost refreshing energy that you go, hey, look, mate, do it, don't do it. You're the one that's losing. And I feel I will almost feel a tinge of guilt. And I say so consistently, I say this out loud, that in 10 years' time, people will be asking us how we did it. And I'm saying, guys, I'm telling you while we're on the journey. Come on the journey with us. I'm telling you, in 10 years' time, life will be even more abundant. Life will be even more enjoyable. And we've got more resources. We've got more time to spend with loved ones, for example, more time to travel, more resources to enjoy life. Why wouldn't you want to plant the seed now so you can be the beneficiary of that in 5-10 years' time more, instead of just going, I'm going to put things on hold because cash flow's got a bit tight?
It's a hard balance, isn't it? Especially with our line of work. Like,
correct. Because we see people that are so successful. I think that's the part. It's like you want the success, but you don't want it that bad enough. And it doesn't seem to make sense to us. because we see it. I don't know, mate. Can you
I'm in the same
reconcile
boat.
this?
It's very hard. Like, it's very hard. And I think there's no right answer to it. You probably get me on a good day and I'll be like, no, I'm definitely not engaging in that convincing conversation. And then you get me on the off day where I'm like, you see someone or you're just like, I feel like you're almost there and you just want me to tell you this. And it's happened a couple of times where we've had that and you've gotten that close and people have missed out, or there's like, yeah, okay, I trust you, Ravi, like, let's do it. And I think there's also that scary part. You're like, people are trusting me in this. Like,
it's a massive
I don't want to F this up for you.
Massive responsibility.
But then the flip side is you got to take accountability. Like, I don't blame people for me being in a shitty situation because I followed someone else's, what they said or their message. That's on me and always has to be on me. But I think maybe we lack a bit of accountability as well.
Yeah. I'll let that linger a little bit because that is definitely when we want to have these honest conversations. I say I'm not bringing buyers agents in to tell us about hotspots. It completely misses the point. Where they're buying, what they're buying. It's horses for courses. It's fit for purpose in terms of someone's brief and portfolio and where they are in their journey. I think we've really got to kind of pull back the layers when we're talking, especially to buyers agents going, hey, mate, there's successful investors that are continuing to stack their portfolio. There's successful investors that are having setbacks, tenant issues. Queensland's got storms, properties get damaged, but they still get up and they get knocked down, they get back up again and like come at me with the next challenge because I'm just going to get bigger, better, resilient, more experience under my belt, for example. That's like turning them to like a real tenacious investor. That it's like, I don't care if I have to go sign more trust documents with a solicitor and get independent legal advice and independent financial advice and find a JP. It's all in a day's work to get that next property locked down.
I go through the same thing. I mean, it was only a couple of weeks ago I was making a purchase and the trust documents came. I was like, I'm so sick of this. I'm never buying property again. I literally was complaining at the office and was just like signing all the things. And it was like, okay, told my lawyer and this and that. And like a week later, there was a deal that came through and I was like, oh, I'll buy this under the trust. And then she literally came to me with the paperwork and she goes, I thought you're never going to do this again. And I was like, yeah, let's go again. Yeah. But yeah, you're right. Like, I think that's where the connection between property investors and say business owners, because you get punched in the face like every day, 10 times a day.
Every day.
So it's like resilience, I think, is the big one. Have you found like even with people that are really successful, there's that real common trait of they've just got like another level of or layer of thick skin, which goes, they get punched in the face and they're going, cool, like now punch me on this side and we're going to continue pumping?
Mate, I think that's, yeah, if you want the how to be successful in a nutshell, it's just that. It's an ability just to get knocked and get smashed down, get back up again and be able to keep going and moving forward. I would have mentioned this on the podcast again, only because I'm a big believer in you can't be what you can't see. And this is something I think applies to yourself, mate. I was really fortunate to have dinner at Emil Juresic's house, right? $28 million house. I'm like, geez, mate, here's someone that was, and I know the feeling because he couldn't put $18 worth of petrol in his car. I've been there at the start of the journey. I'm tapping this my debit card for meeting coffees like with someone like yourself at the start of my journey. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure there's no money on this card. But I think it's when you get to that level, it's like, I've been there, so it doesn't scare me. And now I can see other people that have been on that journey that had the same challenges, but they got through it. And I think there's a level of like, be comfortable in your own skin going, but if they can do it, I can do it. And I think the same thing applies to people when they're building portfolios going, but if they can do it, I can do it. No offense, Ravi, but if you can do it, someone else can do it, right? That's why I said, I don't think you're extraordinary in one sense, because I don't think you've come from like a lineage of like silver spoons.
No. And just to add to that, I think Alex Hormozy puts it the best where I think it's in one of his books and he talks about how your level of belief increases at like 3 stages. So it's one is I've seen someone else more successful than me do it, so it's possible. So I get a little bit more belief. Then there's the next one, which is I see someone else that's, you know, probably at the same level as me, but they've been able to do it. Okay, great. So then your level increases as well in terms of belief. Then there's the one where it's like, I've done it before, I can do it again.
Nice.
And the same thing happens in your business, right? You have a really good month and then a bunch of shit happens the next month. You're like, yeah, but I can get back to that because I've done it once. When you don't have any of those examples around you, you don't think anything's possible because you're like, I've never seen it happen, so it's impossible.
Well said. I feel that's when I talk about competition and we've got two C's. It's competition and comparison, and I think that's probably the hard part that sets people backwards. It's exactly that point. A peer, we started at the same time. Now they've moved really forward. It's like you get dejected or you can get really motivated by that. Whereas if you ask them, cup of coffee, hey, what did you do and how'd you do it? I can tell you right now, I've spent so much time with what you'd call competitors in my space, and we literally will share everything we know. So I just want to see you get better. I want to see you win at this game. And that level of collaboration and wanting to see others succeed, I think is, if you ask the right people, they're going to open doors for you, isn't it?
Huge.
Yeah.
I think you've got to be in a mindset of abundance. The pie is so big, they're not going to take anything out of my pocket. I think it takes, very special people to be in that spot. So like the fact that we're, even here means that I think you're one of those people.
Oh, man, I appreciate it. Feelings are mutual, mate.
And so if you're doing that with others, like that's freaking phenomenal. Obviously there's the issue of, do I have enough time to be able to do it is a different thing. But if we were in a spot where you could have all the time in the world, like the fact that you get to help people, which is why you're doing what you do, is when you get to help someone and I get to help them purchase their first property and they send me an email going, thank you so much. I've been watching your content for a while and now I've purchased my first. That feels so much better than me buying my 10th or 11th. It doesn't mean as much to me because it's just a numbers game. But that is like, you're taking a big step towards like, I know what's over the hill and I'm so excited for you.
Correct. I love it. So on that point, when you see the people that have gone over the hill, they've started out and they've kept going on that journey versus others that had the means, the ability, and they didn't continue. What have you seen between those two types of investors, the characteristics and the hallmarks, do you think?
I think one of the things that I see most commonly is when you've got a couple that want to go on that journey, you've got one that's like mindset is there and they want to make it happen, but they probably haven't picked the right partner that's compatible with them financially. And that has stopped so many people. I've seen them go through the process and then not go again, even though the results are there. They're like, no, we're playing it safe. Usually that is a big one when it comes to couples. When it comes to individuals, I think it's just about, too much choice at the moment. So if they go, oh, I'm hearing from Aaron, I'm hearing from X, Y, and Z, I'm hearing from X, Y, and Z. Well, actually, I don't agree with what he's saying and I agree with what you're saying. But actually, that contradicts what this other person's saying. And suddenly you spent 3 months just going around and just watching a bunch of YouTube channels and going around and around. People just need to get out there, start kicking goals and go, I need a scope of focus. I don't need to go out there and, develop property and then I'm going to renovate this and I'm going to go, I'll buy a commercial. Just stick to what you want to do.
Love it.
Don't diversify. Just go into the one thing, learn the ropes. You'll get punched in the face as well. That's okay. But once you get really good with that foundation, then you can either go, I can rinse and repeat this because I know how it works, or I can go and let's start adding a few, skills to my little basket.
Beautiful. Hey, mate, if you're listening and that conversation sounds eerily similar to what another guest has just said, we literally just another BA has said the exact same thing about investing as a couple as what you just said. You two would have no heads up on what you've just mentioned there, but it's almost that exact message going, investing as a couple, it's awesome because you're combining forces, but it can almost often be that source of friction. And it's like you're spending all our time like butting heads as a couple on how to do it as opposed to how do we get agreement on like a strategy moving forward.
Oh, it's wild.
It is wild, isn't it? To me, it's like, it's probably the biggest handbrake that I see when it comes to growing portfolios. You've got the incomes, you've got the equity, and you've got the means and the ability to keep moving forward, but somehow keep butting heads on the strategy. Do we own our own home? Do we pay off our mortgage to then invest? And we're going to wait. Investing is risky. I don't want to rent invest. I want to own our own home. The investment properties, we're buying sight unseen. I don't know who Ravi is. I don't know who Aaron is. And it's the level of distrust. It's the level of like not galvanizing a strategy. That to me is probably one of the most underrated parts when it comes to investing as a couple.
Which goes back to what you were saying initially, which is having the counseling before you got married.
Yeah,
when you actually go and find a life partner, like that person can either accelerate you to a whole nother level, or they're going to be your biggest like hurdle. And I know people don't want to really hear that, especially if it's after the fact and they've gone, oh shit, maybe I'm not with the right person. Spending time to get to know someone and being really open with finances, like it shouldn't be a taboo topic, because you're like, finances will basically dictate where we live, how we live, have kids, how many kids, what schools will you go to, how often are we going to see each other's parents, how much are we going to have to help our parents as well financially. That's such a big deal, but no one talks about it until they're like, oh, we're married. Now, what's your bank account? Let's get a joint account. Like, bro, you should be having those conversations like within the first couple of dates, and you will know where their risk appetite is. And the thing is, like, you're going for financial freedom. That is like so rare. So you need a lot of things to go your way, but the biggest thing will be whoever your life partner is, who your co-pilot is, needs to be on the same page. Otherwise, you're on a plane and you're like, I want to head this way. They're going, no, we're going this way. You're not going to get anywhere.
Well said. What starts out as financial freedom often becomes financial friction from what I've seen.
Oh, yeah, I like that.
I like that too. We'll both use it. You'll probably trend better than me, buddy, on YouTube, though. That. So just give me a royalty and we'll call
definitely.
it a day. Going back to this whole notion of you can't be what you can't see, and I think that's something that I've looked at your journey for younger Australians that feel dejected or feel like this is not going to happen to me. How do you give them a little bit of motivation, but also a little bit of empathy, but also clarity and direction?
Yeah, it's really hard. And I think that's why like the book was a good place to start, because you start from like the start of the journey of who this guy is. He went through the same sort of stuff and this is how they can scale up a portfolio or whatever. Whereas with YouTube, it's very like there's pros and cons, because you could get discovered by anyone. But when you have a video pop off, there's new people coming into your community going, who is this dude? Firstly, you are Indian, but you sound Australian. I'm confused. And then you're talking about migrants, like I'm sure you're a migrant, but you're not. I don't know what's happening. And then that's when you get a lot of friction within that community, because there's people coming into your world that haven't been following you for the last 2 years, don't have context around what you do.
Yeah.
And that's why you'll see as well on shorts or like, TikTok and the short form content, you'll see such a unique audience where some people absolutely love what you say for the 1 minute and some people who hate it because they have no context. But that's where we've headed as a society. And I know we're going a bit off topic, but
no, it's spot on.
People spend so much time on like, TikTok and just watching shorts. They're going, I'm judging this person. Obviously, if you're on dating apps, it's like within seconds. And I'm judging people that are, talking about finances within a minute. I got no context of who they are, how they're credible, and I'm making an opinion based on that. Unfortunately, a lot of people, I think, because of that, miss out on all the gold that comes with the longer form and the conversations like this. So going back to what you were saying, it's so hard because with YouTube, you've got to feed the algorithm and talk about things that are trending, plus the evergreen stuff. But when you have like a book, you can go, okay, it's a concise version of the start to end, and you'll probably understand the journey a lot better.
Yeah.
Versus, rate cuts, and then I wonder what Aaron's perspective is or what Ravi's perspective is. It's very skewed.
Yeah. No, well said. I love that. There's another chapter in here, which is don't be average. I'm going to find this here. Don't be average. And I love it because you almost average decisions lead to average results. And the fact that you put it on a whole page, I'm like, frame that, because I feel like that to me is that when you accept the status quo, when you're not really pushing, to me, if I'm going to put in my words, I'm like, be savvy, be savage, get after it, No one's going to, like your career, no one's going to want it more than you're going to want it for yourself. And if you're handballing this to a broker, if you're handballing this to a buyer's agent, to an accountant, financial planner, and go, you guys do it for me, there's a level that they will. But you also have to be in the driver's seat to go, but this is what I want. And this is what I want to achieve, because then you can tailor-make the strategy, go, okay, I can see you want to get to 15 properties, like what Ravi's done. Here's how he's done it. We can reverse engineer it, going stack it here, for example. You might be on the sidelines here for a bit, get the income here, bang, go again. And there's a level of clarity that can come with having a well-articulated strategy as well. So how do you take that essence of don't be average and kind of parlay it into a message of going, hey, here's how that then turns into action and activity?
Well, I think it comes back down to those stats we were talking about, right? 0.01% or 0.001% is not average. Like that is so unique. And when you think about financial freedom, you're probably going to need a few properties to get there. and you're going to need a high income. And how many people are actually at that level? Not many. So when you think about doing things that are extraordinary, like financial freedom, but you're following what everyone else does, which is average, you're not. They're two misaligned goals. One is your habits and your skills and what you're doing, which is average, but you want extraordinary results. Like, just actually put that on paper, take a step back and go, does this logically make sense? Mm-hmm. You're like, think about going, I want to learn how to swim, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for walks every day. That's effectively what you're saying, which is these skills don't match up to this. So if you're thinking about how do I go and achieve extraordinary things for myself, whether it's, if you start a business, like there are people that will fail within the first year. So if you make it past the first year, you're not average. And so I think where I was going at with the average side of things was we surround ourselves with people that are pretty average. And if you surround yourself with people who are average, you'll get average results. And it sounds so savage. It sounds like it's not empathetic. But how many people have people in their lives that are like, oh, every time I catch up with them, it's probably parents, it's probably siblings or your partner. And you're like, every time I catch up with them, it's always negative. Well, then, like, how can you hope for this 1% life or the 0.1% life when you're hanging out with these people? You're going to have to cut them. And I know it sounds bad, but if you want that so badly, like, that's what you're going to have to do. That's the sacrifice.
Mate, growth comes from discomfort. And that's a very uncomfortable part where particularly you start to, it pains me to even say, like, you lose some friendships along the way, but then you start to play a bigger game. Like, that's, I'm not tooting our own horn, but that's why we've started the property community, the accelerator that we're launching, is because there's so many investors that I speak to going, I've got no one in my circle that I can tell that I want to buy 5 properties this year, or there's no one's going to celebrate the fact that I go and buy another investment property because they're renting and they're struggling to get into the market. They're almost going to hate me for the fact that I bought another property. It's like, who is championing, celebrating your success versus bringing you back down to their level? And I think that's a really hard part when people dim their lights because the people around them are saying, don't play a bigger game, don't invest in, I don't know, another state, for example, that's risky. And those voices can almost drown out that inner voice, which is, but I know I want more. I know I'm capable of more. I think if you want to, call it a very crude way, if you want to get filthy rich in your own terms, what is filthy rich to you? Hey, if it means you can take a European adventure each year and not be guilty for looking at the prices on a menu, or it's the dream car, or it's just spending more time with your kids, whatever that filthy rich definition is for you, I'm saying get after it. That's pretty much why we're here. I don't think you need to plug copies of your books, mate. You're bloody all over every shelf that I can see, mate, which is awesome for you. And I think that's what happens to winners. They just want to see other people win. And I think you and I are probably the same, which is we're getting some element of, and it's not even perceived success, personal success going, we know we're moving the needle. And it's saying, hey, life is good. What we want more people to have that flavor of champagne that we're drinking. Yeah,
well, I don't drink champagne, but I trust you.
Figuratively speaking, mate, low carb, non-alcoholic champagne is probably what we'll get for you. If that's cool. It's I just think, winning tastes great. Yeah, look at the high performing winning sports teams. They have more fun. Anyone's winning in life just tends to have more fun. It's like, hey man, how do you stack the deck in your favor to win more? Like, you going to, how many podcasts are there? Bro, I've done the numbers. 90% of podcasts don't make it past like 20 odd episodes, right? That's insane. Like, that's top 10% for you. And then how many podcasters then get to rub shoulders with people in the US by Spotify? We're talking like a percentage of a percentage. But imagine you stop playing that big game. It's like, that would inspire me. That would inspire other people to go, hey, mate, no offense, Ravi, if he can do it, someone else can do it. And I don't think you take personal offense to that at all.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to even when you think about your own families, like there's sometimes we have chats with people where the person goes, oh, well, my parents have never bought property. Yeah. No one's been an investor. I'm going to be the first one. And when I think about it with my family, and my dad got involved with investment properties, but there wasn't a sophisticated strategy about doing it. No one in my family had started a business. You guys got up at like 3 a.m. to drive up to like the North Coast or something. Yeah.
Mate, that car trip has got to have changed your life. And look how many people's lives it's changed as well.
Yeah, I've never thought about it that way.
I read it. I was like, I'm a father. And I'm like, and I've said this before, like if you're telling your kids to play a bigger game and you're not doing it for yourself, who's going to believe you? Sorry, man, I cut you off, but yeah.
I don't even know where I was going with it.
Yeah.
Good chat.
Good chat. Mate, credit to you. Like I said, if you're listening and you want to, mate, can I hit you up for a couple of copies of the book if you're listening?
Yes, done. Cool. Signed copies. We'll do it.
Even
we'll both
better.
sign it. We'll both sign it.
So if you've loved this chat and you want to sink your teeth into the book, people like Ravi come on, super generous. You want a copy of his book, I'll throw in a copy of my book, for example. Just the more resources you can sink your teeth into, the better. So drop us a DM. Make sure you give us your address as well so we can send through a copy of a couple of books to you. And again, if you feel like one of your friends in your circle needs to hear this and come on the journey, share the episode with them and get that ripple effect getting a bit bigger and better. I've mentioned around our accelerated community of people that are like-minded, that want to play a bigger game, that want to champion each other's wins and successes. Drop us a DM and say accelerator, and we'll reach out some details as well. But Ravi, mate, thank you so much. I genuinely say respect to you and keep going, mate. You're fighting the good fight.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to take over this part because he doesn't know this.
Yeah.
But what I'm going to say to you guys is, and he's probably going to cut this out and it's going to be like a little clip that he's going to put up. But there's like a handful of people that I would genuinely go out of my way to like actually have a chat with. You know, it wasn't convenient making this happen, but I'm here for a second time. And it's because off camera and on camera, what you see is what you get with this dude. Dude. So nice. Yeah, genuine dude. And I like talking and I like smiling, and thanks. We're doing both of those things on this chat. So
you're a legend.
Keep going, bro.
That's very unscripted, mate. We'll see if that makes the cut or not. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. And like I said, mate, we just once you have that abundance mindset, you just want to see more people win.
Yeah,
I think that's where we come from. So, hey guys, if you loved it, again, leave us a comment. Let us know if this hit the spot, and again, share it with your partner. Or saying bring your partner on the journey, because if you're investing as a couple, it's pretty much the only way we're getting on the same page as well. Hey guys, that's a wrap. We'll talk to you soon.